Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
How's everybody?
I can hear you.
Doing well. How you doing?
Good.
Good. Try not to keep you too long today. We got the chairman on yet? Is she? Let's see. We got Matt. We're still missing Robert and Chris.
Just like it.
I'm not like an expert Zoom user here, so I don't know. Do I look all right? Does this look okay? I can't tell if
Looking
it's
good.
blurry or what it is. Representative Dawson, how are you?
Good, good. Great seeing everyone.
Good to see you. You outdressed us.
Barely.
Hey, Stephanie, how are you doing?
I am doing great. How are you, Chairman Blackman?
I'm good, thank you. I see we got Michael. Let's see. We're still missing the chairman. Let's give him another minute.
All right.
You're the chairman.
Well, not my lane so much. So I have to defer to all you experts, heavy hitters. See, Ben popped in. There he is. Good afternoon there, Mr. Chairman. You think you're
Got you. Hey, Mr. Chairman, sorry. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You're fine. This is your area of expertise, and you're the heavy hitter for this thing. So we're waiting on you, man.
Yeah, waiting on me. I see very astute people all over the screen, so there's quite a few could do this.
Well, thanks for letting us wade into your territory here a little bit and being so supportive of this effort. But we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And Representative Horner said he would open us up in a word of prayer, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Rep. Horner?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me? Let's pray. Thank you, Lord, for providing the ability to serve this great state. I pray that we give us wisdom as we address the concerns of our constituents and our local school systems. Thank you for providing a wonderful day and a wonderful means to do this. Amen.
Man.
Amen. Thank you, Representative Horner. And I guess just, to start off with, let each of you kind of go through and introduce yourself, starting with you, Chairman, and then I'll try to follow up with a few words of where you and I came to as far as our discussion on what this might look like and how we might weave through our meetings. We were fortunate or unfortunate, however you may look at it, that we actually get a couple of extra meetings with our study committee, based on some of the logistics that how they shook out. But if the members would y'all please introduce yourself and any remarks you'd like to make, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Irwin, I think I know everybody on the call here, and looking forward to this. As you know, education is evolving. We talk a lot about AI, everybody, and some of the changes that we're seeing with that. Let's take a serious look at this code section 20, and then let's see if we can make a difference for our young people in either removing some things off the books and or adding to, cleaning up, however you want to say it. But I'm very excited with the opportunity of the folks that are on this committee that are willing to work in this effort. And as you well know, with me in education, I enjoy the opportunity to try to help and assist our teachers and our students. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. And my delegation member and neighbor and former teacher, and I could throw a bunch more accolades at you, Representative Ballard, but glad to have you on the committee.
Thank you. Bethany Ballard, and I represent House District 147, which is Houston and Peach counties. And I'm looking forward to diving into this code and getting some things maybe cleaned up and fixed up for our students and our teachers.
Thank you, Representative Ballard. And Representative Dawson.
Yep, Representative Robert
Glad-
Dawson.
Sorry, I was just going to say, so glad to have you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, good to be here. District 65, of course, I have Fulton County and Coweta County, a little bit of Atlanta school system. I think the speaker is serious about literacy. We're all serious about education, so I'm looking forward to pitching in as well on this one.
Appreciate you serving, Representative Dawson, and excited to be on this committee here with you. I know you've already heard from Representative Horner, but turn it back over to you, sir. I'm glad to have you as well.
Thank you, Chairman. No, I appreciate both chairmen willing to do this. Mitchell Horner, State Representative District 3, Catoosa County. This has been one of the biggest concerns for my county and the rising property taxes and coalescing with this. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to address this.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. And last but not least, you've been talking about education for a while now, Representative Persinger. I know we were all very appreciative of nobody worked harder on school safety this past session. So thank you for toting that legislation and making such a profound impact in the world of school safety for us in the House.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Holt Persinger, District 119, that's representing Barrow and Jackson counties. And I just look forward to working with this committee to see what we can do to streamline some things and things that are outdated, maybe get them off the books. And as Chairman Irwin said, work toward this ever-changing environment to make sure we can make things as efficient and effective as possible. So looking forward to it.
Thank you all. Courtney George, I have not had the opportunity to work with her before, but she's no stranger to education. So Courtney, thank you. I know you'll be steering us from an analyst standpoint the next few weeks in the coming weeks. So excited to have you. Did you want to share anything with us today, or?
No, sir, I'm good.
All right. And we'll hear from Michael Walker in a little bit. He's Ledge Counsel, I think, assigned to your committee, Chairman Irwin. Is that correct? So he's got a few ideas, and not to dive too far into the weeds, but when Chairman Irwin and I first spoke, there was obviously some wins to be had in the cleanup areas for what we've got, I think, under the statutes on education, and some things that have become obsolete, potentially that have become burdensome, that went in with the best of intentions. And over the years has been mentioned to me is how much we can allow our I think most everybody on this call would agree, let our teachers and administrators educate and teach, and be aligned with their students and those families, and anything we can do to help them. And I know this will feed right into obviously what Chairman Irwin continues to do on an annual basis anyway. So thank you, all you heavy hitters, for being a part of this once again. And I guess we'll jump in here. I just ask for a little bit of grace. I mentioned earlier, not my lane, although I, do have history with public education in my family and being involved here locally. Lean on all of you that participate in this world a little bit more so. Matt, if it's okay, I think I've got you first. Do you mind kicking us off here?
Sure, happy to. Can y'all hear me okay? Make sure. Okay. All right. Well, good deal. Well, yeah, so thank you, Chairman Blackman, Chairman Irwin, and committee members. Appreciate y'all letting us say a few words today. My name is Matt Cardoza. I'm Director of External Affairs for Department of Education. I'm here on behalf of State School Superintendent Richard Woods. Our Chief of Staff, Christy Todd, she is actually also online. I think I saw her phone up there. She's in the car traveling from a school visit. So probably won't do camera, but wanted to listen in and make sure y'all know that she's present and able to address questions as well. This is a pretty, I think, a fitting committee and the study of the topic. Superintendent Woods has had this mantra for a long time since he's been in office of compassion over compliance, which really guides our work. We've had a lot of opportunities to probably over the last decade or so to put that into action, everything from COVID waivers to hurricane waivers, very unfortunate incident in Barrow County in Appalachia, really just to name a few, where we, will waive things, in Title 20 that are allowable for us to waive, for things that just make sense, and things that are those events that school districts can't necessarily control. But there may be some things, obviously, that school districts can control, and some things that are on the books that we may be able to look at that may help with them. I mean, we all know that our public schools and administrators are subject to a lot of various mandates, and so from a DOE perspective, we're not the ones implementing or directly impacting on most of those mandates. We certainly look forward to working with the committee and all of these education partners that we get the chance to work with, oftentimes to identify some of those that are overly burdensome and maybe they're outdated mandates, and see where we can streamline. So, the work is important. So, as Chairman Blackman said, we ultimately want our public school administrators to be able to focus more on the educational outcomes rather than compliance things. Now, I will also say there are a lot of things that come from the federal government that obviously none of us can necessarily tackle directly today that are also very much compliance issues that can be burdensome. So just know that sometimes when we hear about that, it could be everything from local to state that we're looking at to a federal issue. But we also know that when we can reduce that administrative burden, we tend to reduce that burden on teachers as well, which is I think something that we all want to do so that our teachers can do the thing that they do best, and that's work with our kids to increase student achievement. It gives them that time that they need to focus on student relationships and finding those student gifts, finding those student challenges so that they can work directly with kids and not be working on those burdensome things. So we've worked with the legislature, for many years on Title 20 cleanup legislation. And sometimes that is simply to get things off the books that are no longer relevant at all. I'm not sure that we've had a specific lens like this committee is looking at for things that are overly burdensome or ways that we can streamline. So we certainly stand ready to do that and help the committee along the way. And we really, really appreciate the committee looking at this. So with that, those are my comments. If y'all have questions, happy to try to answer those. If not, again, in the future committee meetings, we look forward to working with various things that are identified by the committee and the education stakeholders.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions for Mr. Cardoza? I mean, we all see him pretty regular up at the dome. All right. I know I spoke to Ian Caraway with GOSA, and he was tied up today, but he did want to commit to a later meeting. So we'll see them at a upcoming meeting. And I think with Gail, Mr. Wiggins, were you going to share some comments with us? Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, for having me. I think what we'd like to offer from Gail first is thank you for convening this committee meeting to even talk about the mandates and what might be some opportunities to free up the teachers and administrators a little bit. But I think what we would like to offer is once we get a little direction of maybe what this committee would actually like specifically to hear from, is we would be glad to put together or convene some groups on our behalf of principals around the state, large, medium, and small districts, north, south, east, west, city, and county, that get about 10 representative school districts with some principals and get some feedback of what they really feel like some of the mandates that may be causing some hurdles and some detriment to their leadership. We would gladly do that on behalf of Gail.
Well, that sounds great. I don't know if anybody has questions for you, but I think the idea would be is to get that kind of feedback, figure out, how do we, if there are any handcuffs that are keeping our teachers from innovating in the classroom, let's try to pull back on that if we can, and see some of those best practices kind of surface and bubble up, and we can start sharing them statewide. And I do hope that I know we have a meeting upcoming that I'll mention on location. We'll have some more that we'll schedule and can get around the state and see some school systems in action. So thank you, Mr. Wiggins. And Michael, are you still on break from vacation? Sorry to pull you in off vacation, sir, but thank you.
I appreciate.
He went out for just a second. Michael, I don't know if you can hear us. We lost you, or I lost you for a second there. Just to preface what Michael and I, when we talked about setting this up and when he crafted the language for the resolution, Chairman Irwin and I discussed he had some groundwork that he can lay to give us some historical perspective on what's happened in the past and maybe some things that, others have looked at over the years. But Michael, if you're back. Justin, what do you think?
I'm not sure. Like you said, we had him there for a second.
He'd been on the whole time, hadn't he?
He said he can hear us and he's talking, but
He
we
can hear
can't
us and he's talking. We just can't hear him, huh?
Yeah.
Well, let's see if he gets going, we'll just turn it over to him. But in the meantime, I know we've got a few other people on the call here. I just want to make sure, reach out, whether any comments from any of the other members that are online, not General Assembly members, but other members that are joining us for the meeting. I see you, Margaret, Stephanie, and Rob, and who else? I don't know, maybe John Zahner was out there. I don't see him on.
Thank you so much for chairing and convening the conversation, and for those of you who are serving. I spoke with Ben yesterday, and as part of his offer to obtain kind of administrative feedback from across the state, since I'm planning to do a legislative presentation at Summer Gale, the huge administrator conference that his organization convenes next week in Jekyll. We've actually created a brief survey that we're going to drop a QR code into my presentation so that we can get feedback to submit to this committee from those administrators from many different school districts across the state. So we'll have that for you that we're going to collect next week at future meetings as a collaboration between our associations. We're also going to, for Chairman Irwin's absenteeism committee, obtain some information and best practices from that as well.
Very good. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Margaret. How about you, Stephanie? I know we didn't have you scheduled to speak, but you're welcome to.
That's right. I am not here to offer anything specific today, but I am so glad to engage in this process. We see GSBA as someone who can piggyback on recommendations from administrators and teachers, because for us, it's always important to put students first. And we know that students excel when teachers are able to teach. I can share that previously GSBA had printed out the number of mandates required, mostly at the state level and then some from the federal level. And I'm only 5'3", but they came about to my knee, just for reference, so pretty high. But we do have an education policy research specialist who could dig into some issues more, especially as we hear from organizations like Gale, GSSA, and PAGE. We could also survey our members if there's a need. We could happily do that. So I think at this point, we're ready to dig in where you see it's best and to support others who tell us specific about where the burdens lie and how we can better serve not only our students, but our teachers.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. And I do see Michael might give you another stab. But thanks again, Stephanie. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate you being here. Michael, we see you there. You would take another stab at it? Well, somebody does not want us to hear from Michael, do they? You can hear us. We can't hear you for some reason. Well, maybe I can. We'll want to hear from you directly, Michael. But I think what I would, from my conversations and what I've heard from you and Chairman Irwin, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, one of the things that was done several years ago is based on the way our various systems work across the state is that they have the ability to opt out of certain mandates if, to give them some additional local control. And I think we've seen that ebb and flow over the years, how that's done. And then there's some different things that we call the same thing that we call different names, and maybe the code could use a little bit of cleanup along those lines. So I know those are a couple of things he was going to mention. And you're talking about you're talking about calling in, right, Michael? So we'll give it a minute. Let's see what comes up there. I also know from communicating with Courtney that there have been some cleanup bills in the past, but it's been several years since we've seen one. And I know, Chris, you've had an immense amount to cover year in and year out. So probably pretty tough to try to, run over and deal with some of that cleanup, that code revision stuff that people aren't as focused on during the session.
Well, let me add, Mr. Chairman, that frequently we pass legislation that makes other legislation obsolete. And there you go. I think he got Michael in.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
I'm
Michael,
here.
we got
Sorry,
you, I
sorry to
think.
interrupt.
So,
And can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, I apologize for interrupting Chairman Irwin's comments. I'm happy to wait for him to finish his thought if he wants to keep going.
No, Michael, you and I have had conversation on this, and I would really like the other members here with Chairman to hear these comments on kind of what's been done in the past and what, why the reason I think that we have looked at this in the past. Well, let's turn the mic over to you and Mr. Chairman, if that's all right.
Absolutely. Please, Mike.
Sure. And thank you. I apologize for the technical difficulties. They are beyond me, but I'm glad we've gotten past them. And Chairman Blackman, you definitely covered the areas that had occurred to me when the concept of the study committee came up. But back up just a second, and for those who I haven't had the chance to work with, just a quick introduction. I'm Michael Walker. I'm Deputy Legislative Counsel. Our office is a nonpartisan joint office. We represent each member of the General Assembly and each committee of the General Assembly in a nonpartisan, non-biased way. So we support this study committee in that capacity, and we're here to neither advocate for or against any particular policy, but provide whatever support that we can. I have been in the education field for a lot of years, and a couple of areas that came to mind when Chairman Blackman originally came to me with this idea was the terminology that we use, and particularly in the last several years, I think we're all aware that we're dealing with a greater number of different entities in the education space than was traditionally the case, where you might have just had your public school and your private school. We now have a wide array of different public school entities. We've got county school systems, we've got independent school systems, we've got local charter schools, state charter schools, completion schools. And the way that we refer to these in the code is really all over the place, and there's no standard convention that is used. We refer to local units of administration in some places. We refer to local education agencies in some places. We use the generic term public school to try and be kind of omnibus term to cover everything, but that leads to some uncertainty as to whether or not that really does include all public schools or just traditional public schools. So to the extent that we could bring some standardization and clarity to just the use of some of our very basic terms on how we describe our educational organizations, I think that could be helpful across the board. So that's an area that I would consider to be ripe for some improvement and plenty of low-hanging fruit. And even if there were some instances in the code where it might be a little too nuanced to undertake with a cleanup bill, I think that we could still do a lot of good work on that, again, just by picking the low-hanging fruit. Another area that I think has seen some evolution in the last 15 years or so, it concerns the waivers, and both Chairman Blackman and Matt Cardoza mentioned the waivers. Of course, we're all familiar with that. We've got 15 or so years under our belt with waivers, and what started out around, I guess, when the law was originally adopted in 2008 and then kind of went through its early evolutions, was the idea to give the locals the greatest amount of flexibility in order to improve outcomes. What I have experienced in the 7 sessions, I guess, that I've been in the General Assembly is there's been, I wouldn't say constant, but there has been a fairly steady interest among the membership of the General Assembly when they are enacting new laws in Title 20 to include a provision in the new laws that this particular law is not going to be subject to waivers. So in other words, about 15 years ago, we probably had our maximalist approach to waivers, where we gave school systems and charter systems the opportunity to really waive the greatest number of provisions in Title 20 and various school board rules to achieve increases in outcome, improvements in outcome. And since then, we've kind of chipped away at that just a little bit. Again, since we don't take any particular position regarding policy, we're not suggesting that we either, add more waivers or take away more waivers. We simply point out that since granting kind of the full menu of waivers about 15 years ago, the General Assembly has started to narrow those waivers, particularly when they are enacting a new law. at this point, I think that it's safe to say that school systems and school administrators may have less than a perfectly clear picture as to what waivers they might be eligible for. Fortunately, there is the safety net that they work with the State Board of Education and the Department of Education to go through that process to determine, what waivers will be approved. And so there's at least that those suspenders are in place to help. But to the extent that we could bring some clarity into the law, I think that would also be beneficial. The last subject that comes to mind, and this may not be something that we'll be able to deal with during the course of this study committee, but could become particularly relevant in the next year or so, it would be changes in the federal approach to elementary and secondary education. We've heard that the U.S. Department of Education may be on the chopping block. And of course, our position in the Office of Legislative Counsel is that although it's possible to essentially tie the hands of the Department of Education, it can't be completely eliminated without an act of Congress, but that doesn't seem impossible. And so reviewing the parts of our code that are particularly impacted by federal laws could be important, at least to the extent that we're making references to the U.S. Department of Education or are specifically contemplating any kind of programmatic requirements that are currently being carried out or ordered by the U.S. Department of Education. So it could be that during the course of this study committee, some clarity may start to crystallize in that space. My last comment would be more of a generic comment, and that would be whenever we are dealing with any kind of cleanup bill, our office would want to at least point out that we do need to be careful of the constitutional provisions in the Georgia Constitution that prohibit multiple subjects. So not all cleanup bills are created equal. Some cleanup bills are pretty clean when it comes to dealing with just a single subject, and some so-called cleanup bills actually deal with a wide variety of multiple subjects, and therefore are at least, there's some potential for heightened constitutional scrutiny of those bills. So I would just kind of put that out there at the beginning of our deliberations to say that if at the end of this process, if the study committee were to recommend some cleanup legislation that started to get very broad in its approach, I would just caution the committee that could make a final version of the bill vulnerable to a constitutional challenge. But that's something that I'll be assessing along the way, and will certainly raise the yellow flag as needed, if needed, and certainly share that with the members just as we move through this process. But I'd be happy to try and answer any questions or provide any other support that I can provide.
Thank you, Michael. That all great information, very helpful. Even to be hearing it, kind of again, so to speak. Enjoy the rest of your time. Thank you again for being here. Chairman Irwin, did you have anything else? I felt the need, like I said, to have kind of a kickoff meeting, and we did it via Zoom to make it easier for everybody because we knew it wouldn't be a very long meeting. We obviously, have a little bit of a charge to create some additional clarity and some efficiency, not only for our statutes, but for our customers, our students, our families, our administrators, our teachers, et cetera. And we don't want to bite off too much or more than we can chew, but obviously want to be helpful to you and what you're doing with the committee overall. So again, I kind of open it up for the rest of the members, and Mr. Chairman, your thoughts as we close it out. Oh, we got you muted.
There we go. Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Let me state a couple of things as we're walking down this path. My recommendation would be to narrow our focus. And how many at a minimum? I think there would be 3 things that we could narrow in. I think that would improve our success rather than just trying to open up the whole section and just wandering through that code section. we've heard from Michael Walker there about descriptions or describing our schools. We've heard about waivers, and we've heard about the USDOE, either the going away, the reduction, the impact. And so I would, for discussion, maybe at the next meeting or before we get off that the importance of narrowing our focus at a minimum down to 3, maybe no more than 10, whatever people on the committee feel. But that would be my comment at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Gotcha. Thank you, Chairman Irwin. Any other input from the committee members?
Chairman Blackman, Rob Brown, I just want to let you, John's Honor.
Yeah, Rob, jump in there.
Yeah, John's Honor was unable to join this afternoon, so I stepped on for him. Don't know moving forward if it'll be me or him. Of course, if I'm told, I will be here, but I appreciate you letting me sit in and listen to the conversation.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here. And anybody else? No? Gosh, that was easy. Well, Chairman, listen, as far as my pledge is, obviously to keep it simple. That's what we try to do, just about everything, over in the basement over there that we touch if we can. So we'll try to keep it simple, but also try to be helpful. And, like I said, to you and all of our customers across the state. So look forward to a few meetings. We do have August the 26th right now tentatively set up for being hosted in Houston County. Sorry, that's home here. So I know the folks really well, and they're excited to have us. I've talked with Courtney a little bit about that, and more to come on that. And then, if y'all have some ideas or suggestions of different places across the state, we'll at least have a couple more and try to be at different school systems across the state and hear from them. And I know we'll have some RESA folks that are going to be able to present. We'll have Ian and GOSA that are going to talk to us a little bit. And then I think some of the other organizations that couldn't be with us today will chime in as well. So excited about it. Thank y'all. And really be remiss if I didn't thank the speaker for allowing us to go down this path and try to work towards, making some positive change here. All right. Nothing else. Thank y'all very much. Have a good rest of the week and weekend.
Thank you, Chairman.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank y'all.